My name is Jason Brammer. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I moved into Maplewood Street across the street in 2001, and I started coming to Star Lounge years ago when they first opened and was doing events there. Used to work in that studio. Now my studio is in Humboldt Park on California and Cortez in Humboldt Park, and I have a studio space. I do a lot of exterior murals. I do commissions for clients. I do different projects for rock bands and different things. I've done some work with the Smashing Pumpkins and My Morning Jacket, Robert Plant, some other rock bands. So I do a lot of split my time between commissions and fine art. Any time period? Oh man, Alphonse Mucha, Gustav Klimt, Rick Griffin. I like his work a lot. He was influenced by Alphonse Mucha. Rick Griffin did a lot of the text for the Grateful Dead, the famous text and all that. And those guys would sit around at parties, Art Crumb and Griffin, and they would just pass a sketchbook around and draw and then add to it. And some pretty cosmic imagery came out of that scene. What I would tell my younger self is probably to wear earplugs. I'd tell my younger self to not smoke cigarettes. I would tell myself to I would tell my younger self to not worry about what you're doing, just get good at what you're doing. I think when you're younger, you overemphasize your artistic vision. It's too important, it's too dramatic, and then you don't have the ability to create that imagery. And so I overemphasized what I was painting, and if I would go back in time, I would just say, it doesn't matter what you're painting because you're not very good right now. So it's going to take 10, 20 years before you can even really do what you want to do. Relax, the imagery doesn't matter. Don't worry about what you're painting. You're not making some big giant statement. It doesn't matter because it's not painted that well. Figure it out. Just learn how to paint, would be my advice to myself. To power through writer's block or creative resistance, I think you need to set the wheels in motion. The creative process needs to be set in motion, and that acts as a magnet for ideas. It's not the other way around. So it's not I feel inspired, I'm gonna go paint this thing. I think it's the other way around. It's like, ugh, I gotta stretch this canvas, or I've gotta tune my drums, I gotta tune my guitar or whatever. You lay all the groundwork and then you start doing it, and then ideas follow. So that, in a kind of more mystical sense, the sense of the muses, or these 9 muses, like the Greeks looked at, they were these muses of inspiration, and there are specific ways of cultivating their inspiration. And so it's not a matter of being excited or inspired. It's a matter of toil, and it's a matter of grinding through it when you don't want to or you don't feel inspired, and then the inspiration comes. My opinion is that it requires a specific form of sacrifice, and the ancients knew this, and they'd sacrifice all kinds of things. In our day and age, we need to sacrifice time, we need to sacrifice the art form, I guess. Like, we need to do, I have to do the line work and do the stuff that no one will ever see, and it's unsellable. I have to make this stuff that's like impractical, and then the muses, if you will, smile on that. They say, or the higher form of yourself, or the part of yourself that's creative, that has the ideas, or however you want to frame it, it sees that, and it's like, oh, this person's doing the work. We will give them the ideas because they put the time in. So I think it's a lot of it's very mundane, and it requires like very unexciting things, and you keep doing it. But if I'm practicing drums and I don't feel like practicing anymore, and I stop, I don't get any better. Practicing through that point of when you're bored or whatever, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do 20 more minutes with the metronome at 120. Something will happen. You'll get some juice out of pushing through the boredom, the tedium, and all that stuff. So I think creativity doesn't necessarily like zap you. it comes to you through the actions that you take. And this is kind of, this guy Stephen Pressfield wrote The War of Art, and this is kind of where I'm coming from. And it's a little on the mystical end of the spectrum, but it's just that the idea is your lifestyle requires a specific way of living for ideas to pour into you. And those are the muses, and if you abuse that, it leaves you, I think. I've felt abandoned by the muses. If your motives are impure or whatever. I mean, it could just be my own personal narrative, but it could be seen as a form of religion. I do have a favorite piece, and it's something that I obsess about and think about a lot. And my favorite work of art that I've ever done is the next one. I think that the next piece, whatever I'm working on, is my favorite piece. And then the next one, and then the next one. And I do have some that I think are better than others, but I don't feel overly attached to like the past pieces particularly. There's some that I'm glad didn't sell, that I have at home, that I'm keeping, that I'm taking out of whatever, the marketplace. And I'm glad that I have them. But yeah, it's always the next piece, because then I think that everything that you do, I think it can always be better musically or artistically or in any field. I mean, it can always be better. It's never fully realized. I think Michelangelo would he'd do the Sistine Chapel differently. You know, it's like, as an artist, be his work, I think that's the point.